Today we're diving into a fascinating and, frankly, a kind of scary story that sits right at the intersection of ancient culture, cutting-edge technology, and a demographic crisis that's brewing in East Asia. It's all about the relentless pursuit of perfection, and it really starts with one shocking number.
0.72. That's it. That is South Korea's total fertility rate. And that's not just low, that's the lowest fertility rate in the entire world. And it's not some random outlier either. It's the tip of the spear of a massive trend happening all across the region. We're talking China, Japan, you name it.
So, what is going on here? Why is this happening? Now, your first thought might be, oh, it's just economics, right? But to really get to the bottom of the cultural pressures driving this, researchers say we have to rewind the clock way, way back.
You see, this crushing pressure on kids in East Asia to be academic superstars, it isn't new, not at all. It actually has super deep roots in a system that was designed over 1,000 years ago to find the absolute best and brightest.
For 1,300 years, the one and only path to power in imperial China was this series of brutal exams called the Keiju. If you succeeded, you became part of the elite. If you failed, well, you were left behind. Now, that system is long gone, but its ghost absolutely haunts the high-stakes university entrance exams of today.
There's this modern saying that just perfectly sums it all up. One exam dictates one's life chances. Just imagine that. The idea that your entire future could be decided in just a few hours. It fuels this insane educational arms race, where parents are just desperate to get any possible advantage for their kids. And this leads to something called the Red Queen effect. You know, from Alice in Wonderland, where you have to run as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. Everybody is running so hard, with endless tutoring and cram schools, that just to keep up, you have to run even faster. This is the world of tiger parenting. And this race, it starts really, really young. And this obsession, it runs deep. I mean, culturally deep. There's this ancient story about the philosopher Mencius's mother. She literally moved her family 3 different times just to find the perfect learning environment for her son. And that exact same drive, that need to secure the absolute best opportunities no matter what it costs, you see it mirrored by parents today.
So why? Why is the pressure cooker so intense? Well, the big part of it comes down to culture. In many East Asian societies, your success isn't just your own. It reflects on your entire family's honor, what's known as face. So failure brings this collective shame, which just supercharges the pressure to succeed beyond anything you typically see in the West. Okay, so for centuries, the path to perfection was through pure, grueling effort, right? Study harder, work longer. But now, a completely new ingredient is being tossed into this pressure cooker. And it's technology that promises a shortcut, a way to engineer better children right from the very start.
And listen, this isn't science fiction. We're talking about screening IVF embryos for traits like intelligence or even directly editing DNA. And on the horizon, brain chips to boost memory. For parents who are already locked in this crazy race, this technology offers the ultimate competitive advantage, literally built right into their child's genetic code.
So, what happens when this deep, ancient cultural drive for perfection collides head-on with these incredibly powerful new technologies? Well, this is where the key term for today's explainer comes into play.
You know, researchers started asking themselves this question. What do you even call it when a culture heavily influenced by Confucian values meets the promise of consumer eugenics? They realized they needed a new word for this powerful and potentially dangerous fusion.
And that word is Confugenics. It's the intersection where the cultural demand for perfect children, driven by these hyper-competitive social norms, meets the technological supply of tools that might actually create them.
You can almost think of it like a formula. Confucian values plus new eugenics equals Confugenics. See, the key here isn't just that the technology exists. It's that this technology is being poured into a cultural mold that is uniquely prepared and maybe even eager to embrace it.
And this isn't just a theory. You can actually see this readiness in the data. A survey found that almost half, 48% of people in Singapore would be willing to use gene editing to help their child get into a top university. Compare that to 34% in the USA. That's a huge difference. And this kind of thinking, it's been around for a while. It's not totally new. I mean, just listen to this incredibly stark quote from Singapore's founder, Lee Kuan Yew. It reveals this long-standing eugenic undercurrent in the region's thinking, this link between intelligence, reproduction, and the idea of breeding a better population.
But here's the massive paradox in all of this. Instead of creating some kind of supercharged, hyper-successful society, researchers are now warning that confugenics could actually trigger a totally devastating social crisis.
It could create a vicious cycle. Here's how it works. The intense pressure drives demand for this expensive tech. The incredibly high cost means parents feel they can only afford one perfectly enhanced child. And the result? Those already rock-bottom fertility rates, they fall even further.
So the endgame here isn't some meritocratic utopia full of geniuses. Nope, it's a society flooded with perfectly engineered, academically overqualified individuals, all fighting for the same handful of elite jobs. And that leads to massive underemployment, widespread frustration, and a whole generation that was promised a prize that, for most of them, just doesn't exist.
And you know what? We're already seeing the cracks. We're already seeing the symptoms. Phenomena like hikikomori in Japan, where young people basically become total recluse, or the lying flat and let it rot movements in China, where the youth are just opting out of the rat race entirely. These are all symptoms of a generation deciding the game is rigged and no longer worth playing.
Which brings us to the final and most critical question of all. Is this relentless, tech-fueled pursuit of the perfect child actually worth the price of an entire society's future? It's a dilemma with profound implications. And honestly, it's not just a question for East Asia. It's a question for all of us.